Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Darshaun McAway. You're tuned in to WowPodcast. By all means, go to WowPodcast.me. That's WowPodcast.me. Today we have a special guest on the line, Sharon Lindsay. She's the author of the Son of God series. Sharon, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk because I wanted to know what made you come up with this particular series?
Well, it's kind of a long story. It started back when I was 20, 30 years old. I read romance and historical novels all the time. And one day we got into kind of a financial crunch and I couldn't afford to buy any paperback books. So I thought, well, I'll just write my own. So I picked up just a spiral notebook and a pen, and I started writing, and it was really fun. I just thoroughly enjoyed making the characters do whatever I wanted them to do. And so then I thought, maybe I'll try to get published. So I moved on to a word processor, and I did a number of submissions, and I got a bunch of rejections, of course. And then the day came when I got a letter that was not really a rejection. Now, they didn't really take the book, but the person who wrote the letter said, this is a great novel. This should be published. And while I held that letter in my hand, I heard the Lord speak to me in my head. And the Lord said, I don't want you to write that kind of book.
Okay.
And so we had a little conversation, the Lord and I, and it ended with, okay, I'm not going to write again until you tell me what to write. Now, a number of years later, and I didn't write for several years, I walked into a Christian bookstore and I saw a book that caught my eye. It said, The Bible as a Novel. And I picked it up and I started skimming and I said to myself, whoever wrote this book never read a good novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then something just burned inside of me that I had to be the one to really write Bible stories like a novel with all the action and the emotion and the description that it takes to bring that story to life. And that's how the series began.
Got you. So what's unique about this series?
Okay. Probably, one of the first things that people notice is that God, Holy Spirit, angels, good and bad angels, Satan, demons, they're all characters. And action takes place in heaven. Action takes place on earth and kind of in between. The other thing that I would say is most unique is that Jesus is like a real person. He's not stiff. He's real. He lives in a real world. Most people are afraid to fictionalize Jesus, because the word Jesus and fiction don't go together. And they can fictionalize any other Bible character, but not Jesus.
Right.
But I have not changed the story of Jesus. I have just deepened and expanded the story of Jesus so that you know the backstory of how he met Lazarus. So that you hear imagined dialogue and expressions and moods, and you meet people that aren't in the Bible, but he probably met and talked to. And he interacts with historical characters that he would have normally met.
So with this series here, how many pages per book?
Each book is about 400 pages. These are pretty hefty books. And in the back of each book, there is an appendix that lets you know which characters are biblical characters, where you can find them in the Bible, which ones are historical characters, which ones are fictional characters. So you can kind of straighten it out in your mind.
Gotcha. So how long did it... Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. All right. I was also going to say that all of the scriptures that are quoted in the Bible, from the Bible, are also in notes in the back of the book.
Gotcha. So how long did it take you to write these books?
It took probably more than 12 years.
Wow. Wow. That is a mighty long time. 12 years of writing these books, and they're roughly about 400 pages apiece?
Yeah, well, the first year was totally research.
So is this the only series that you're going to come out with?
Well, I write what the Lord tells me to write. And it appears that it may be, because what I have found out is that writing the book and publishing the book is not the end of it. You have to get the book out in front of the public. Mm-hmm. Because if nobody knows that you've written it, nobody's going to read it.
Right. Right.
And so most of my time right now is spent in publicizing my book. But the Lord does have me writing another book. He has me writing the story of my life, because I have had many amazing experiences with the Lord, and I am writing those in that book.
Gotcha. Is there a certain series that you like?
I think book 4 is my favorite. Book 4 has all the miracles in it, and I think I've managed to get every single miracle that he did. And so book 4 is really packed full. Book 5, of course, is the crucifixion story. And it's quite a moving story.
What should readers expect from this particular series? What should they get about this?
What they should expect, first of all, is for the books to read like any other novel that they pick up. It's the Bible story. The Bible is the plot outline. But they should expect it to read like a novel. They should, even though they know the Bible story, they should be kind of waiting to see what's going to happen in the next page. Because it's not quite the way they imagined it.
Right. So, you know, throughout history, a lot of people are very skeptical about God and the Jesus theory. What can you tell them about your experience with God?
The shortest and probably the most interesting thing is that when I was 19, I heard the Lord speak to me out loud. And it was a difficult time in my life, and I was asking God, what am I going to do? You know how that is. And he said, in 2 weeks, you will meet Don Lindsay. And I'm going, who's Don Lindsay, and where's this voice coming from? Well, exactly 2 weeks. I mean to the hour. I met Don Lindsay, who is the man who became my husband.
Right.
And then on our wedding day, the Lord spoke to me again, and he told me that in 20 to 25 years that I would deal with serious health problems with my husband. And that also came about. So those were 2 rather amazing things. Many more things have happened, but those are probably the most amazing.
Now, usually I would get into and question, like somewhat of a debate, but with this particular series, I want to take your word for it. Where can people find out how to purchase your books? Okay.
The easiest place to go to is my website, but I'm on Amazon, so just put in Sharon Lindsay on Amazon and you'll find them. My website, www.sonofgodbooks.com, and there, click on any book, and you'll have a whole page full of places that you can just click on, links you can go to.
And where can people find you on social media?
Mostly on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Son of God Books. And I mentioned that I spend a lot of time publicizing my books. Well, I've joined about 2,000 Facebook groups, and I post to these groups, all the time. So I'm on Facebook a lot.
Got you. Well, you're tuned in to WowPodcast. I'm your host, Darshaun McAway. We're talking to author Sharon Lindsay. She's the author of the Son of God series. By all means, go to sonofgodbooks.com to check out her books. Sharon, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thank you. Goodbye.